And I think my wife's getting home on the phone. Nice. So this is meant to ensure, along with the 13th and 14th Amendments, the full citizenship of former slaves. Among the Progressive Era amendments, we see the 16th Amendment, which grants Congress the power to levy income taxes. This expands the size and income of the federal government and allows the government to be more involved in people's lives generally. The 17th Amendment kind of has a populist tone of that progressive era. 1913 was ratified. This changes how we elected senators, no longer elected by state legislatures, but directly by the people in their state. 18th Amendment, very interesting, was we call this the Prohibition Amendment. Alcohol was the target. This was ratified in 1919, but was repealed 13 and a half years later by the 21st Amendment. We'll get into to why that happened. At the time, with increased urbanization and increasing problems from poverty and broken families, alcohol kind of became the chief culprit, everybody's favorite enemy. Here's what Billy Sunday, a preacher at the time, wrote. He said, quote, "The saloon is the sum of all villainies. It is worse than war or pestilence. It is the parent of all crimes and the mother of all sins." So the attitude taken by Americans during this time, not all obviously, but enough to get an amendment passed, was that if alcohol, we could get rid of those problems. So in a sense, a worthy cause. None of those things, crime, broken homes, poverty, are things to be lauded or defended, but as we'll see with the 21st Amendment, didn't really work out. 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote, which they'd been working on forever, literally since the founding of the nation. Abigail Adams wrote in 1776, here's a quote, "If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation." So the argument's running really that women are under the law which they're not represented in, which was one of the main complaints against colonial rule. Before the 14th Amendment, many of the states had already given women the right to vote. So in a sense, you could say by this time it was inevitable. I've got a great longish quote here from Susan B. Anthony, who's considered really the champion of women's rights in the late 1800s. Here's the quote. "It was we the people, not we the male white citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who formed the Union. And we formed it not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, not to the half of ourselves and the half of our posterity, but to the whole people, women as well as men. And it is a downright mockery to talk to women of their enjoyment of the blessings of liberty while they are denied the use of the only means of securing them provided by this democratic republican government, the ballot. To them this government has no just powers derived from the consent of the governed. To them this government is not a democracy, it is not a republic, it is an odious aristocracy, a hateful oligarchy of sex, which ordains all men sovereigns, all women subjects, carries dissension, discord, and rebellion into every home of the nation." Amendment 20. This amendment has to do with legislators who've been voted out of office, as in incumbents who are going to be replaced in the next session of Congress, yet they're still in Congress and they're able to to continue to make laws. This was a problem because a lame duck congressman would not have any accountability to voters for the legislation they voted on. So it was decided that these terms and inauguration days and whatnot should be changed around so that no lame duck sessions of Congress would happen without the accountability to the voters. 21st Amendment, repealed prohibition. Interesting here is really the question of whether we can effectively legislate morality, partly in that just as human nature got to work after the 18th Amendment, widespread corruption and organized crime really made things in cities a lot worse than they'd been. This became seen as a completely counterproductive effort because just outlawing it wasn't enough. You had to enforce that, as you might have seen dramatized in TV shows like The Untouchables. Some would say that this is a similar situation to what we have now with the war on drugs, that there's a counterproductive nature to that combating of drugs, which really hasn't harmed the drug trade and the crime that surrounds it, only just made it sort of criminal on all levels and strengthened that sort of criminal community instead of weakening it. Obviously up for further debate. All right, the past 50 years, I have no idea why that picture's there, other than it was a placeholder I just forgot about. Excellent professionalism. 22nd Amendment limits the number of terms a president can serve. This was after Franklin Delano Roosevelt had been elected to 4 terms. He really only served 3, and didn't serve out his 4th term more than a few months before his Vice President Harry Truman became president. But there was concern that having a single president for this long would just be too much like having sort of a all-powerful executive branch who just stayed and sort of determined the course of the country over an overlong period of time. In response to this, though, I think a good argument would be that it kind of introduces, I guess you could say, a lame duck presidency issue, because for those, let's say someone gets reelected for a second term, they have no reason to really do well or badly in that term because they can't get reelected for a following one, so they're no longer accountable to voters, similar to the issue in the 20th Amendment. But such as it is, this is what we have. Amendment 23 gives the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., its share based on population plus 2 of electoral college votes in the presidential election, as if it were a state. Washington, D.C., originally part of Maryland and slight part of Virginia, was designated, just sort of the seat of our government, this 10 by 10 mile area. And what has happened is that as people just live in the city, they don't have representation in Congress. Congress itself, at a national level, governs the District of Columbia. So these folks are the only U.S. citizens to pay federal taxes but have no voting representation. As you'll remember, one of the original intolerable acts the Declaration of Independence had to do it. So it's sort of an ongoing issue. There's been various protests or at least symbolic acts along this line by D.C. residents in recent years.